Thank y'all for having me today. My name is Garrett. As Lisa said, I'm with Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful. I've been with the Gwinnett County just over 7 years now. I started in Parks and Recreation, and I moved over to Water Resources. And about 2 years ago, I moved over to Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful. My main forte is Adopt a Stream and aquatic education. I also run the Stormwater Protectors Program for Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful, and I do a whole bunch of other various volunteer events and volunteer coordination. That's kind of my background, is volunteer coordination and specifically environment, a little bit more specifically aquatic. You know, so we're going to be talking about the Georgia Adopt a Stream program. So this is the intro program to the Adopt a Stream program. We'll just jump right into it. The Adopt a Stream program is it's a state program. So this is actually part of Georgia's EPD, so the Environmental Protection Division, and it's actually part of Georgia EPD and Georgia DNR, so the Department of Natural Resources. So this is an actual program that is funded by the state, and there are actual people that work for Adopt a Stream itself at the state level, but then we facilitate it here on the county level as well. And I'll talk about a little bit more about what it looks like for us on the county level here. But just to give you guys more of a broad overview of the program itself, it's a statewide program. This is the same thing we teach here. You could use on a different part of the state. So the certifications that we give in Gwinnett County are good throughout the state. So I'll talk a little bit more about the program itself. So Adopt, we have five main attributes that make up, what actually we're looking for. So it's actually an acronym. Adopt is an acronym. A stands for awareness. So awareness is one of the bigger things of this program, and you guys are in the environmental sphere, so you guys know that just talking, just talking to someone at the Pond and Pedal about this plant, and like why, like this plant's better because this is native. It's the same thing with when we're talking about aquatics. Why would this reading be bad for my stream? Like why does this bad? So awareness that this program exists and the education behind it is very important, because we want to spread the message of environmental awareness as much as we can, but we also want the data to back that up as well. So that's what the D stands for for data in Adopt a Stream. So data, we're actually collecting, scientific data using, scientific methods. Now, we're not getting necessarily actual science data, like we're not following super harsh protocols in the lab. Everything we're doing is in situ, in situation. So, we're taking samples right there at the creek, getting results right there at the creek. And so there's a protocol, though, that we follow where it's not necessarily just any volunteer can do it. And I'll talk about that in a second. In addition to data, we also are taking observations of our creek. And this is, as important as data, because once you start to see your creek over time, if you sample a creek for a year, you start to notice like, well, this is what it did last fall. And that makes sense. The water's a little bit lower than it normally is. Let me make a note of that. It smells a little bit different than it normally smells. I'll make a note of that. So, using your senses and making observations about your creek is just as important as data, because it can tell you a lot right off the bat before you even get data. And then partnerships. This is a great program to make some partnerships. Not specifically in the water industry, even though there are a lot of people that are in the water industry that do this program. There's a lot of people that are just regular everyday volunteers, and they got involved and they started loving collecting samples and checking for water pollution. And there's a really great conference in March that they rotate throughout the state where you can go take some classes, meet some people in the industry, and get to know other volunteers in the space. It's called the Confluence Conference. They move it around. Next year, it's going to be in back in Helen, out at Unicoi State Park. And then T stands for tools and training. So we are actually using, scientific equipment. It's just different. It's more localized where we're doing it at the actual creek, and we're actually, getting these scientific measurements and using the tools and the training for each of these programs. And so why would we monitor water quality? Well, it's, kind of like, duh, well, we would do it because we want our water to be clean, right? But we don't think about, because we're not directly drinking water out of the creek, right? But, we have to think about, all of us get our water in Gwinnett County. We get all of our water from Lake Lanier, right? So we don't necessarily put all of our water back into, all of our stormwater doesn't necessarily go back into Lake Lanier. It's actually just a little sliver of Gwinnett that actually drains into Lake Lanier itself. So we hope that our neighbors in Hall County and, White County and all the counties up on the Chattahoochee headwaters are taking care of their water that drains into Lake Lanier, because our, water filter facilities, they have to filter out all the contaminants that are in, in whatever body of water that they are taking care of. So same goes for us here, what pollutants are going into our stormwater and going into, say, the Chattahoochee River. City of Atlanta pulls from, city of Roswell, all the DeKalb, Fulton, a lot of these places pull from the Chattahoochee, and the Chattahoochee is a really big river. So does everyone else that, filters from the Chattahoochee all the way down to Florida, so you have to think about, watersheds, and we'll talk about that in just a second, of how we affect upstream. So regular monitoring provides some baseline information about potential contaminants. So we really want to be conscious of what our water looks like and what it looks like for our neighbor as well. So we've got two sources of pollution, what we call point and non-point source pollution. It's really easy. Point source pollution, you can point at it, and that's where it's coming from. So if you see a this picture right here on the left, that's just that might be some sort of discharge that's coming directly into the river. A lot of this was after the 1972 Clean Water Act was, it got rid of a lot of, pollution directly into the water. There's certain amounts that companies can, dump into the river, and that's diluted out to a certain, but it's very heavily regulated. So it's not necessarily what we're going to be looking for this program. Really what our biggest issue in Georgia is non-point source pollution. I believe 95% of pollution comes from non-point source. That's the stat for that. And non-point source is everything else that you can't point to, and it's not easily distinguishable. So that's anything that gets collected in rainwater. Think about, a parking lot, all the oil that's, collecting on a parking lot. It rains, it goes down the storm drains, it eventually makes its way out into one of our streams. Your backyard, a dog park, all the dog poop that's sitting out there, that eventually goes into the river or stormwater system, that eventually goes out into a stream, and that could pollute, and it will pollute the streams around us. That's definitely the main cause of water quality issues in Georgia, that being dog poop. And what is a watershed? So I was talking about this a little bit earlier with the Chattahoochee. So a watershed is an area where water drains. So we can segment areas in Georgia of where water drains. So you've got its boundaries are defined by the highest points. This doesn't mean that you only have it around like mountainous areas. There's it's defined by where water drains in one particular area. So if you look at where our watershed is, we are right in the middle of actually three watersheds in Gwinnett. If you see where the purple and the tan and the highlighter yellow meet right there, we're kind of right in the middle there. So we drain into three major watersheds in Gwinnett. The Oconee being one, the Ocmulgee, and the Chattahoochee. And so it's actually kind of neat. We are on what's called the Eastern Continental Divide. So half of the county drains into the Oconee and Ocmulgee, which drains into the Atlantic, and then half of the county drains into the Chattahoochee, which eventually drains into the Gulf. So that's just a fun fact, but it kind of furthers the point of what we were talking about earlier, how we affect our downstream neighbors by what we do in our water usage and our water contamination as well. What goes in down our storm drains eventually ends up at our downstorm neighbors. And so you can see that there's on the left, these are the what I call macro watersheds. These are the bigger watersheds of Georgia, and then you can break it down even further to kind of the smaller ones, and you can break it down even further. This is just Gwinnett, the watersheds in Gwinnett, the major watersheds, and you can break it down even further of this. You can get down to the littlest little of this creek that's in your backyard. You can map out on geographic information systems, layers, stuff like that. It's a little technical, but you can map out where exactly is draining into your little watershed in your backyard. It might just be one neighborhood up the street, or it might be a couple. You might be surprised with what's draining into your local park or your local stream in your backyard. But these are the major watersheds in Gwinnett. So one thing I like to point out is when you're sampling, say we're sampling in the upper yellow, we're sampling and we get a contamination in one of our creeks. We're not going to hop over into the Swanee watershed because the Swanee water to look for our pollutant, because the Swanee watershed is completely separate. That's part of the Chattahoochee Basin. That's going to be draining into a totally different area. Same thing with upper yellow. We're not going to hop over to the Alcovey and try to find our contaminant there because it's not going to be there. It's going to be in the upper yellow watershed. And that's where we're going to look. So you can break it down even further to be like, where else can I sample in here to find my pollutant and contamination? But more than likely, we're not going to find contamination. That's not the point of this. That's not the goal of this necessarily. We are trying to collect baseline data. That is the point of this program. And you're adding to a very large volunteer network of over 3,000 volunteers. And this map on the left, that is active sites right now of people who are sampling, at least once or twice a month, or once every other month or so. And you've got people all over, especially Metro Atlanta. We have a lot of people, and we have a lot of area that's sampled around us, which is great because that means we have a lot of baseline data that we can pull and see, like, hey, does this look normal for my area? So it's really good. We have a good network around us as well. So if you were wanting to attend a workshop, we want to determine our goals first. So what do we want to monitor? And what would the site you look like to adopt? What type of data would you want to collect? And who might be interested in your data? The question to that is me. I'm interested in your data. We're interested in your data on the county level because we want to know about potential pollutants in the county. That's the reason why this program is funded partially by the Gwinnett Water Resources as well, so that they don't have to have more full-time staff that are going out and sampling as their full-time job. If we can get anywhere from 30 to 40 volunteers a year, collecting monthly samples, that's a lot of sample. That's a lot of tax dollars that we're saving through this program. And it's a really great just community program in general as well. And so we want to determine the goals first before we attend a workshop. But then when you do decide to attend a workshop, there's a couple different options. Actually, there's more than a couple. There's quite a few different options now that we're offering a lot more. So we are going to talk about QA/QC workshops and then non-QA/QC. So these are different types of workshops. The QA/QC workshops require a certification. The non-QA/QCs don't require a certification. You just have to attend a workshop. So for the QA/QC monitoring, QA/QC, I'll talk about this in just a second. There's a slide for QA/QC. But we have three main workshops that we do. So we do macroinvertebrates. That's what Lisa was talking about earlier with bugs. So you have aquatic insects that live under the rocks in creeks. You might have never known that, but they spend the majority of their life in the water, and then they have a life cycle. A lot of them have a life cycle where they come out of the water for a couple weeks to breed, and then they die. So they're like, you've got mayflies and stoneflies and caddisflies, stuff you don't typically see, all the time. But then you also got like dragonflies and damselflies. A lot of people don't know, but they actually start their life cycle in the water. So next time you see a dragonfly, think about that. They start as that. That's actually a dragonfly nymph right here in that little spoon right there. And then that's Carmita right there, taking a chemical sample. And then you have chemical. So chemical tests for dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, conductivity, and it's a monthly sampling. As opposed to macroinvertebrates, that's only a quarterly sampling because it's very involved. You're testing the diversity of macroinvertebrates, so it's very involved. And then you have bacterial as an option as well. So bacterial tests for E. coli, which can indicate the presence of pathogens. You guys know E. coli is no good. So if it's in our stream, we're looking to find that through various testing. And that's a monthly survey as well. So the QA/QC protocol is you guys would come out for those classes, get trained, and then pass a test, show that you can, if it's the macroinvertebrates, identify bugs. If it's the chemical, that you can just physically show me that you can use the chemical equipment. And the bacterial is the same thing. You come out and you pass a test after a more in-depth workshop. But it's not, the macroinvertebrates a little bit challenging, but the chemical and bacterial really, you do not have to have a science background. You don't have to have a science background for any of this. This is really citizen science. I don't have a science background myself, like formally. I'm actually a political science major. I just fell into environmental science through an internship, and I've been doing it ever since. So I don't have any formal science training whatsoever. People ask me like chemistry questions when I'm doing the chemical training. I'm like, I'm not a chemist. I do not know. I just follow the protocol and do as I say according to the state. So, and I've gotten great results since. So this quality assurance project plan is what sets this apart from a regular volunteer program. This is a citizen science program, so this is certified data. This is not just anyone can go buy a kit off Amazon and test their creek in their backyard. This is the next level of that. This is you're getting actual viable data, and only certified volunteers can actually enter the data. So everyone after this class, you can actually go and check your local streams and stuff like that. But if you're actually going to upload data, you have to have certification. You have to maintain that you've been certified within a year as well. So that's what separates this from just any other volunteer program. And then we've got the non-QA/QC monitoring program. So this is just the other programs where you don't have to pass a certification to do. You've got the watershed survey, which is this is a lot of it's virtual, so you can map out your watershed, like I was saying, through using geographic information systems, topographic maps, stuff like that. If you're good with stuff like that, it's actually really cool to see what could potentially be in your watershed. And then you look and see, like you map out like how many car washes are in my watershed, how many, auto shops, how many dog parks, how many potential pollutant sites are there. You would kind of get a better understanding what might be draining into your creek in your backyard that you're sampling. And then you have the visual stream monitoring. We actually just did a class a few weeks ago of this for the first time in a while. This is like actual like measurements of your stream. So we took a cross section. So we took a tape measure across a creek, measured it, and then measured the depth. And from that, we did some calculations to graph it out and show what actually is, happening in our creek. You can see how fast it's flowing. And so this is a really cool, part that's not necessarily, it's more observation based, the O and adopt. And that one is more, you don't have to do that monthly. It's actually pretty involved. So, but that one's really, really cool as well. It's more of like actually like go out and do it type of a workshop. So for, you don't have to form a group necessarily for Adopt Stream. You can totally do it solo. But on the actual site, you actually have to like make a group, which is kind of weird, but you have to just title it something that you'll remember. And then you'll select a site. So Adopt Stream doesn't give out sites for you. I have a running list of if you're interested in adopting a creek, I have a running list of stuff that I would like to be sampled throughout the county. Or if you have like a backyard creek or something like that, or if you want to sample at a park near you, that would just reach out to me and we can do that because we handle the equipment for Gwinnett. So all the equipment, all the chemical, bacterial equipment, that's all handled through Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful. So it would just go, I teach the monthly classes, and you'd come out, get certified, and then you come and by our office and grab the supplies, and then you start sampling monthly. So starting with monitoring, you want to set up a schedule, and you want to be pretty consistent. I'm not saying like I try to sample on like the second Wednesday every month, and that never happens. But I try to be somewhere in that second week, third week of the month. So they're kind of, you don't want to bookend, sample on June 30th and then sample the first week of July because they're going to be very, very similar. We want to see a change over time of what's happening each month by month. And you want to sample around the same time every day you do it. So typically I sample around 10 a.m. And that's usually where I want to be around every time because that's normally when I sample. So I try to go in that like 9 a.m. to 11 window because you're going to have a lot different results if you sample in the morning versus you sample in the afternoon. Think about like sampling right now. If you sampled this morning when it was, it was still 80 degrees at 10 a.m. this morning, but versus when it's 95 degrees at 4 p.m., you're going to have a lot different results. Your temperature is definitely going to be different in your water, but temperature affects other indicators like dissolved oxygen. So you want to be consistent with the time that you're sampling as well. But I always say some data is better than no data as well. So anytime you can get a sample in, for the month, I say go for it, because you have to record when it is anyway. So if you have an outlier in one of your months, you'll see, like why. It's like, oh, because I sampled at a different time potentially. Then you'll submit and review your data, and then the data goes into the state's database. But then I get a little buzz that someone submitted data as well, so I get to check out and see how the data looks. So how the data is used, it's used to establish baselines on the conditions for streams across the state. So this is a little graph of showing how it's used. So education is the biggest one for sure, but then baseline, you're looking at establishing these baseline for other people that are potentially trying to sample, but also if people are doing this for research. This is a lot of college papers are written using AdoptStream data. This is not necessarily legal. This can't be used in to influence law for environmental law, stuff like that. But it could definitely be used for advocacy for it. So it's definitely good data in that sense. But that it's also, there's at the conference each year, there's what's called the Red Flag Award, and that's given to someone that found a pollutant in their stream, and it was solved. So a lot of the time, it's potentially like a sewer break or a sewer line break, or like a septic system failure. So that's definitely, it happens every year. Someone's finds and reports something that's fixed very quickly because they found it. So that's definitely one of the real world things that we try to get across in this program. Some other ways you can get involved. So I talked a little bit about Confluence. You've got it's the annual volunteer conference. You've got some talks and workshops that you can do. This is a picture of me, John, and Wes. We all three got awards. I think this was 3 years ago at Confluence 3 years ago. And then you've got the picture, the bottom picture. That's a stream bank repair workshop at one of the conferences. That was really cool. And then you have actual talk workshops. You have they did this past. I really wish I didn't miss this past Confluence. They did it at Jekyll Island, and they had a kayak trip, a guided tour, a tour of the gator zoo down there as well. They do a really good job with this event every year, and any volunteer is welcome to go. And it's super, it's in terms of conferences, super cheap. It's $35 or something like that, which is unheard of in conferences nowadays. Conferences are $200 plus now normally. And so there's also a quarterly newsletter you can sign up to for just information on the program, what's happening, what's going on in the program. And if you're interested in signing up for that, just let me know, and I can put your email on that. The AdoptStream website, if you're looking for more information on this, go ahead. You go over to the AdoptStream's website, which is let's see, right here, adoptstream.georgia.gov. Or if you just Google Georgia AdoptStream, it'll come up. But you can get a lot more information on here on what the next steps are. If you want to sign up for a workshop, I should have put a slide on that in this. This is kind of the state standard presentation for intro, and I tried to customize it as best I could for Gwinnett. Go to Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful's website, gwinnettcb.org, and go to the AdoptStream tab. And I post monthly workshops. I think that the next workshop I'm teaching is a bacterial on August 4th, I believe. And then I know I have a double workshop coming up if you want to go ahead and get bacterial and chemical done on September 18th, coming up Friday, September 18th, I believe, in Lilburn. So that'll be a good one as well if you're interested in getting a DropStream certified and learning more about the program and how you can do it actually. And then you can go and see everything else on the website as well. If you want to look and see like, what streams are adopted around me, you can do that. Just leave your email either in the chat or send it, tell Lisa she can send me it afterwards because you have to make an account in Adopt a Stream. You don't have to be certified to view all the information, but you have to make an account. So I'll have to put your email on the Adopt a Stream website, and you'll make an account that way. I think that's the only way you can do it. So I'm making an intro. You'll get a little check mark that you passed intro to Adopt a Stream. Doing that too. So some other EPD road outreach programs you might have heard of is Rivers Alive. That's the waterway cleanup program. Project Wet, which is the K through 12 education program. And then River of Words, which I don't know if they do this anymore. This is an old presentation, but you also have this is all the contact information for Adopt a Stream themselves. They're actually doing a really good job recently. They're fully staffed right now. There was a point where there was an interim running the entire program. Now they have 3 full-time. They have a manager and 2 coordinators. And so they have a good system going on right now where if you email that general email, they'll email back really quick. But they're good people over there as well. And then you have the Adopt a Stream contacts for Gwinnett. So for all general purposes, I'm the main Adopt a Stream contact in Gwinnett County. But y'all probably know John and Matt from Water Resources. They would be if you needed to reach out to someone that you had like a water resources issue like directly. Well, you could call the water department dispatch directly, and they'd send someone out to fix whatever you're finding. But they help with the program as well, and they're both trainers. And then Carmita helps whenever I'm not here, and she gets people. She's actually a certified trainer as well, so she knows her way around the entire program and can help you get new kits and stuff like that if I'm not available. But for any other general purposes, any other questions, anything related to Adopt a Stream in Gwinnett, just reach out to me. My email is right here. That's gdufty@gwinnettcb.org. And I can get you set up with anything. And, yeah. So that's the end of my presentations. I can open it up now for questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. So you have a question here that says, and I'm not sure, this was earlier on at like 12:15. Which of these align to Noonan? Wasn't sure if you mentioned that info, and then said, who would be the coordinator for Noonan and Coweta County?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have a Noonan or a Coweta contact. I have, let's see. That's what I have like a little slide on like Metro. Like I have a DeKalb Connect. I have a Fulton Connect.
And don't feel obligated, like if you don't have it ready. I did put the Adopt a Stream Gwinnett link in the chat along with your email and my email. So if you have questions or you have a longer question or something like that for Garrett, feel free to just grab his email here and you can send him an email and he can respond at a later date so that you don't feel like you're on the spot.
Yeah. No, and that's, yeah, absolutely. Any questions related. And if you were interested in like your local coordinator, there's actually a local coordinator page on Stream. It's not necessarily super updated all the time. That's why I didn't like fully go there. But is Noonan, is that close to Griffin, city of Griffin? Because I know the city of Griffin, um, they have a very flushed out program for Adopt a Stream as well. I don't think that's Spalding County.
So yeah, so that's over kind of by Peachtree
Yeah.
City.
Mhm. Yeah, so I have a Spalding County contact, but I don't know how I don't have a Coweta County contact, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other questions? If you do, you can. Let's see. I'm curious. You mentioned looking at macro invertebrates. Is tracking ever done for turtles or river otters?
Not formally, but that's always like it in like the observation notes when you're uploading data. I always say like, like I had, so and so because I look at birds and stuff like that too. So I'm like, has this many bird species potentially, like depending on what I'm out there doing. There was an actual program for amphibian monitoring through Adopt a Stream, but they're kind of reworking that right now because the methods that were being used before were a little bit invasive for amphibians. If you know amphibians and all, like they're pretty sensitive. So like lifting up logs every month isn't necessarily like good for their habitat. So they're trying to formalize a frog protocol right now. So like you get certified by knowing the I think it's like 15 species in the metro area, like their frog calls, and you would start surveying like frog calls around your creek.
Follow-up question. Does the presence of otters indicate a good water quality?
I would assume yes, because I'm not a fisheries biologist, but because there's crawfish that they're mainly eating and clams and stuff like that. Well, there are invasive clams though, so that doesn't necessarily, but typically, like if you're having biodiversity in, like mammal species as well, if you've got river otters, and they're going to need a diversity of um, stuff that they're eating. So I would just assume that would indicate good water quality.
I will chime in because I am a fisheries biologist.
You are.
Yeah, I know, I kind of chuckled at that one. So it doesn't necessarily indicate that the waterway has not been impacted on the presence or absence of otters, because generally you'll have more tolerant species of both fish, crayfish, that kind of thing that are in the waterways. It does indicate that there is enough food resources present to support the carrying capacity or the level of the number of otters that are there. So if you see them regularly, that means there's a food source there, and that's a good thing. And that can be carried over to animals on land or whichever. So it's a good thing to see them there. It doesn't necessarily mean that the waterway is not impacted, however. So.
Yeah. I guess the same thing could be said about like trout as well. Because especially when you go up in the mountains, you have trout waters, and they do have, like sea trout. It's like causation doesn't necessarily equal whatever the saying is, but you have a whole bunch of diversity of macroinvertebrates that the trout are eating up in the mountains, but it's not necessarily the trout that are like it was what the indicator is. It's the biodiversity of what they're eating. That's what's actually, a bioindicator on pollutants.
There are a lot of indices that are calculated using populations of the benthic macroinvertebrates. The water quality is determined that way. I had to step away to help with a computer issue, so I don't know if you talked about that or not. But
I didn't. That is the protocol that the Dufty stream uses. I just briefly talked about macroinvertebrates, but we use like a scoring system of like if you hit this many of this, and this tier is worth more because these are the ones that are pollution sensitive. These are so if you only have the pollution tolerant ones, then you might have a polluted stream.
Yeah, you have an impacted, and it's pretty easy to say that most of the streams in and around the Metro Atlanta area are impacted.
They definitely are. Yeah.
Yeah. But how impacted it depends on the order of the stream, and it depends a lot on the growth around that particular stream and that kind of thing. So lots of good stuff here. It might be fun if we set up a workshop with you guys where you took us out to some streams so that you could show us some of this stuff. So, if anybody might be interested in just like a one-off workshop where Garret can showcase some of the techniques for invertebrate sampling, just drop a yes in the chat box, and that'll let me know that you think that would be kind of fun. I promise he won't drag you down someplace where you need like waders or anything like that, or worrying about the spiders and the ticks and the other stuff to get to it. It should be fairly. I take it you can find a spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Pretty much anywhere I do like my workshops is not like I'm not like trucking through the woods for most of it.
Okay.
So yeah.
So we'll figure out a date and a time that works, and then that'll go up on our UJ Extension Gwinnett website under our events and classes. We'll probably try to push it out maybe a month or so.
Yeah.
That work? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll try to push it out about a month or so, and we'll figure out, maybe, I don't know, Saturdays off for you, or you prefer weekdays?
Prefer weekdays, but
usually we get a little bit more participation on Saturday, but we can try to figure it out. Maybe late afternoons.
Yeah.
So, because I know there's a few teachers I see that are on there that might really get a lot of interest out of that share with students. So anyway,
I'm more than willing to come out and talk to your class as well on give this training as well.
Even better. All right. Any other questions? If not, then we still have a little bit of time, but if not, then we'll quit early and everybody can go grab lunch somewhere. Oh, going once, going twice. Thanks, Garret. And again, watch the events page and for the second part, which will be a field trip, and we'll go have some fun in the woods.
Yeah, and if you guys reach out to me, if you guys want to have access to the website, just reach out to me with your email, and I'll let you play around on the Adopt a Stream website. So
awesome. Thank you, and everybody have a good afternoon. Take care.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Peter.